I got into editing almost by accident. My background was in photography and journalism. I came to Sydney from the country to sort of try and break in, and found it very difficult to break into the camera, and ended up getting a job as an assistant editor. I was working as an assistant sound editor for about 2 years before I started working in television. I was working on documentaries, mainly documentaries, but also some drama productions. Yeah, I worked with Ray Thomas, who for on and off for those 2 or 3 years. I suppose the thing I learned from Ray, the most important thing, was that the basis of editing is good storytelling, no matter what you're cutting, whether it's television, drama, documentaries. It's really about the storytelling. When I came into TV, I was still mainly assisting, and again, it was by accident. I was working freelance, and a job fell through, and I had what looked like a 3-month gap in my schedule. And there was a job going on the Sunday program at Channel 9 where they needed an assistant or somebody who could sound edit and cut. And I sort of saw that as a stopgap till my next proper job came in. And I came here, and here I am 22 years later, still here.
TV?
Well, I found I enjoyed television a lot more because maybe because of the background I had in newspapers and working as a journalist. I enjoyed working with journalists again. I enjoyed the news environment, and I also enjoyed the quick turnaround where you're working on a project for a week or 2 weeks. It goes out to air, and then you start a brand new project. I suppose, yeah, it is there is a certain excitement and adrenaline buzz with doing those really tight turnarounds where you have, maybe 30, 40 hours to get a 40-minute story out. It has its pluses and its minuses, because often it's just about getting it out and getting it out into a acceptable form, and I suppose it's knowing which corners you can cut and which corners you can't, and just trying to keep balance. For a show like Getaway, it's almost a sort of a fine-tuning and ongoing fine-tuning and maintenance of the show, in that we're on 42 weeks of the year for 1 hour. What is that? It's about 30-something hours of television, I think, and you have to keep the show looking fresh and interesting. So that is on all levels, on sort of the graphics, the way the stories are cut, the type of music being used. We've got 3 editors working on the show, and even though we have a Getaway format, it tends to be very loose so that we don't get 7 stories a week which look and feel the same. Often we cut stories at the beginning of the year which aren't run till the end of the year, and I'm often struck by the fact that when they are put in shows, to me they stand out, and you look at them and you say, wow, I'd never cut that story like that today, I would cut it differently. And I think if you're thinking that within a 12-month span, then you're not getting stale. I think the other important thing is to keep an eye on what's happening out there in general in features, commercials. Even the net's influencing television. The whole sort of flash aesthetic and look has had a big impact on television graphics and styles over the last couple of years. So I think it's important to be aware of those things and understand which bits you can incorporate into whatever project you're working on, and which bits to ignore is equally important. Buckheimer's is great, but not for a travel show. I suppose the other pressure you're sort of under with television is it's a sort of a hungry beast, and you've just got to fill this space on a weekly basis. So if they go out and shoot a story and it's a disaster, there's still a slot which has to be filled that week, so you basically have to resurrect it. And the other problem we have, being a travel show, it's virtually impossible to go back and do a reshoot. We had a story which was shot in New York. It was a Sex in the City tour. Everything which went wrong on the day did. It rained. A lot of the permissions they'd been told they'd had to film, they weren't allowed to film in certain areas and certain stores.
We're not allowed to film in here because that'd cost about $60,000 US. So if you want to see inside, watch the program.
The bus tour wasn't particularly cooperative in giving them time to shoot, so it was all done on the run. Just one thing built up on another, and the crew came back with what they thought was an unusable story. And again, that's sort of an example of probably what I was very happy with my skills as an editor, of putting it together, but it's not a story I put on my show reel. But I was happy with it because I turned something which everybody thought was unusable into an okay story, or a good story.
You can see why these tours are predominantly female. There's nothing for me to buy. No, I don't think so.
It's just a matter of looking at what you have and exploiting the strengths of what you have. The fact that it was all shot rather jerkily, and I had a good look at the show and the titles of the show and the way they were put together, and kind of took that look and feel and then applied it to the story, and used the same style, used the music in the same style that they used it in the show, and was able to sort of put together a nice pacey 4-minute story.
I love your hair.
I think over the next few years what we're going to see is a massive change in the way people consume their media. The idea of the TV in the corner with the family sitting around is fast disappearing. If we want to make content which people are going to watch and it's going to be meaningful for people, it has to work across a number of platforms and a number of delivery systems. The old film techniques, which was been building since the beginning of last century, and the film grammar, I think is going to have to be, a lot of it is going to have to be thrown out in this sort of new storytelling environment, and we're going to have to give people elements that they can use and construct however they want to, more like a video game type sort of narrative, where people explore stories and travel through it, but not necessarily in some predetermined way. I think the most sort of pertinent comment I've heard about the whole future of media in general is that as producers of media, we have to stop thinking of ourselves as authors and start sort of thinking ourselves more as curators, giving people lots of elements which they can develop and build on to create their own experience.